Hello everyone, my name is Ritter, and today we will be discussing some OSHA regulations. Specifically, we're going to be going into the electrical components in construction. Specifically, we're going to be covering Subpart K, 1926.400 through 449. That is what Subpart K is composed of, and we will not be covering all of Subpart K, because that would just be way too long. But we will be covering some specific regulations inside of Subpart K that I found were important, or something that somebody could learn from. So let's get right into it. So first of all, the topics that we're going to be going over, we're going to be going over wiring design and protection. We're going to be going over environmental deterioration of equipment. We're going to be going over maintenance of equipment, the locking and tagging of circuits, and then we're going to be talking about batteries and battery charging. So first of all, wiring design and protection. And I'm going to be stating these regulations word for word, right? Each cord set, attachment cap, plug, and receptacle of cord sets, and any equipment connected by cord and plug, except cord sets and receptacles which are fixed and not exposed to damage, shall be visually inspected before each day's use for external defects such as deformed or missing pins or insulation damage, and for indications of possible internal damage. An equipment that is found damaged or defective shall not be used until it is repaired. And here's the coding below the wording. I'll be putting that with every regulation. But if something is damaged or defective, or in other words can't be used, it shouldn't be used until it is repaired, or get something new. Get a new wire, get a new piece of equipment, get a new piece of electrical components. Whatever is damaged, if it is damaged, it should not be in use. So in this top picture, we have a wire which is in perfect condition and is being used, which is in accordance to the regulations. And then in the picture below, we have a wire which is damaged and is still in use, which is obviously not in accordance to the regulations. If you use damaged equipment, it can create a hazardous environment. It can create dangers for the workers around it, and it could hurt somebody. You could get shocked if there's an electrical component that's damaged and you touch it. If some kind of weather affects it, it could ignite, combust. There's a lot of different things that can happen when you use damaged equipment or electrical components, any of that. And even if it's a small damage, like small damaged equipment, if it's not extremely damaged, but it's only a little damaged, and you're like, well, I'll still use it. It's not completely unusable. It can become completely unusable very fast, and a small problem can create a huge problem pretty quickly, and it can become a lot more costly. Lockout and tagging of circuits. Equipment or circuits that are de-energized shall be rendered inoperative and shall have tags attached at all points where such equipment or circuits can be energized. If something is de-energized and should not be being used, it should be locked and tagged out. You need to be letting everybody know that you should not be turning on this equipment. You should not be energizing this equipment. It is not supposed to be in use at this time. And on the right, you have a picture of electrical components that are not locked and tagged out. This would be an example of what not to do. And then on the left is a perfect example of a lock and tag out practice. It's got the lock on it. It's got the tag, do not operate, equipment locked out. And it's got it on the energizing point where you would switch the equipment on, right? lot of bad things can happen whenever you use equipment or energize equipment that is not supposed to be energized. Maybe it's damaged. Maybe somebody's inside the equipment. Maybe somebody's inside of the area, and if you turn it on, it can kill somebody. Or if you turn it on, it can damage something. It could affect the environment. All this just comes down to safety. The maintenance of equipment. The employer shall ensure that all wiring components and utilization equipment in hazardous locations are maintained in a dust-tight, dust ignition proof, or explosion proof condition as appropriate. There shall be no loose or missing screws, gaskets, threaded connections, seals, or other impairments to a tight condition. And on the bottom here we see a example of missing screws, electrical components which are not in a tight condition. And then on the top we see an example of electrical components which are in a tight condition. All the screws are there, everything's in good condition. And if something's not in good condition, don't use it. Switch it out. Because dust, any kind of, not just dust, it can be particles of something that could ignite. In electrical components, if something ignites, it could cause a explosion. It could cause further damaging of the equipment. It can cause damage to someone. It could affect someone, right? It could cause a lot of bad things that could have been prevented if you just stuck to the guidelines and maintained the tight condition of these components. Batteries and battery charging. So batteries of the unsealed type shall be located in enclosures with outside vents or in well-ventilated rooms, and shall be arranged so as to prevent the escape of fumes, gases, or electrolyte spray into other areas. And on the right here we have a picture of a battery charging room, and it is not very well ventilated at all. You can see there's not a lot of ventilation. And then on the left here you see a really good example of ventilation. I mean, there's tons of ventilation inside of this area right here. I mean, there's probably not an area inside of the room that isn't ventilated. And this is very good practice, while this other picture is not good practice in accordance with the regulations. In these kinds of environments, if batteries are not ventilated inside the battery rooms, it can create a combustible environment, right? It can create a accumulants of fumes and gases, which is not good for people. It's not good for the environment, and it can seep into other rooms too. All this could be prevented if it is just well ventilated, and then you don't have to worry about it. Then you can just charge away. You can charge these batteries. You don't have to worry about anything combusting, anything going into anyone's lungs. This is all stuff that you have to take into account whenever you are talking about battery charging, especially the unsealed type. Environmental deterioration of equipment. So, unless it's identified for use in the operating environment, no conductors or equipment shall be located in damp or wet locations where exposed to gases, fumes, vapors, liquids, or other agents having a deteriorating effect on the conductor or equipment. And we see in this top left picture, we see a wire inside of a bunch of water. That is obviously not best practice. That is against the regulations. And then in these other two pictures, we see wiring being used. See right here, it's being used in a good environment. It's being used in the environment that it's supposed to be being used in, and it's in accordance to the regulations. When you're using equipment like this, when you're using electrical components, wiring, anything, the environment can affect the equipment or the components significantly. If there's water around, if there's lots of dust, if there's lots of ice. I mean, a lot of environments can affect the equipment in a bad way, and it could damage it. It could cause a significant cost to the company, or it could damage somebody it could shock somebody. It could cause damage to a person, which could be a liability. So, in conclusion, I'm going to thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to me talk for 10 minutes. After watching this video, hopefully you can be more aware of the regulations that OSHA has set for electrical components inside of construction. Again, I'm just trying to give you some good information that I thought I found inside the regulations that I thought would be pretty important in general. These regulations are put in place for a reason. They can save lives when they're kept, right? They can keep people safe. They are not always best practice, but when you're in accordance to the regulations, you're usually going to be in pretty good shape. But they are the minimum requirements, right? So they're not always best practice. If they are not followed, then someone could be put at risk. They are minimums for a reason, right? They're something that you definitely need to be in accordance with, and that's why if you don't follow them, you could get a citation. You could get in trouble with OSHA because you need to be in accordance with these regulations, because if you're not, you're putting somebody at risk, whether you like it or not, whether it's convenient or not to be in accordance with the regulations. It's saving lives and keeping things safe that really matters. So in conclusion, thank you guys for your time, and hopefully I gave you some useful information, and see y'all later.